Welcome to the Farming Without the Bank podcast, the show with a no BS approach to money, hosted by a farm strategy expert and authorized IBC practitioner. Join us as we get real and expose the flaws of traditional financial institutions in order to help farmers take control of their finances, create peace of mind, grow their wealth, and leave a legacy. Now, here's your host, Mary Jo Irmen.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate it. All right. Today we are going to talk about a hot topic. It really is a hot topic when we come into the whole infinite banking world. And if you read Nelson's book, you're like, Mary Jo, I want to start a bazillion policies. I want to put in every red cent because that's what Nelson said. And so today's topic is, let's be realistic. However, we are covering another chapter in Nelson's book, and that chapter is expanding the system to accommodate all income. That is page 48 of Nelson's book, probably the most controversial page and the most controversial chapter that Nelson has in his book. And, you know, I really, really wish before he passed away, I would have said, Nelson, please, for the love of Pete, explain this to me so we can put this to rest. And I know that many people have visited with him about it, and it means something different to everybody. It's kind of like the Bible. Right? Everybody has their own take on the Bible because it means something different to everybody. And then we go ahead and fight about that. So it's very similar in the aspect of people think when they read this chapter that every dollar needs to go through a system. Because what Nelson is talking about is that our money must reside somewhere. And so it's in a bank. It has to go through a bank because that is our means of exchange. And I think that this is the important part, is that he says, yes, all of our money has to go somewhere, right? We have to put it into a bank. So why not put it into a bank that we own and we control? I get it. He is making a point. But think about it, people. If you put every dollar you ever use into a life insurance policy, you then have to borrow those dollars and pay them back and pay the premium. Now, from past chapters, we also know that you must capitalize your system. And going forward in the book, we are going to see that he capitalizes his systems. He has to capitalize those policies. So if you live on $12,000 a year of, let's say that's what it costs you to buy groceries, okay? $12,000 a year, yes, you can put it in the system, but you need to capitalize that system so that you can borrow from it, but you also have other money to pay the premium. And I think that so many people forget that we still have premium to pay. And people that really get this, when we have our first meeting, they say, well, I can't borrow the money because if I borrow the money, I still have to pay the premium, right? Yes, you do. Absolutely. So there comes a time where we need to capitalize. So we have to also remember that we are talking about the title of the book is Becoming Your Own Banker, right? And everything Nelson talks about in the first half of the book is not living expenses. He is talking about borrowing money to buy things, lending, using money for retirement, right? That's what he's talking about. Yet when we read this chapter, the first thing we think about is all of our money, all of our living expenses have to go there. But the book is about using your bank as a lending institution, right? Instead of going to the traditional bank down the road, let's go to the life insurance policy to borrow that money and use the bank that you own and control. He doesn't ever talk in the book. I have never seen it. I could be wrong. I'm learning every day. But he never talks about the fact that you are using living expenses to run through the policy. He is talking about borrowing money for cars and homes and equipment and big purchases. And so we can very easily get wrapped up into saying, I want to put that money in the policy and then borrow against it for everything. That can get you into trouble. And we also need to remember, Nelson was talking about imagination, reason, and logic. We have to use all of that in every single chapter. Just because it's not in this chapter doesn't mean that we don't have to use it. We still have to consider that and use our logic, for Pete's sakes. If we put every dollar through the system, we have to borrow every dollar for every single thing we need. It's no different than what a lot of farmers are doing, and they're borrowing from a line of credit to go to McDonald's and paying interest on the meal from McDonald's, and then they have to pay that back. If you want to see somebody go backwards, find somebody that is borrowing living expenses from a line of credit. Anybody that is borrowing living expenses from a line of credit is not doing well. I see them all the time. We get stuck. That is going to make us stuck, because the only way we can get out of that situation is to have a super good year so we can pay all of that back, plus hopefully next year not have to borrow living expenses out of our line of credit. That's a big deal. That's exactly what we're doing with this life insurance policy if we're going to borrow living expenses. Now, other agents say other things. Other infinite banking practitioners have systems of where they think that this works. I am not that person. I am far too conservative for that. I am not going to borrow my living expenses out of my policy, especially on day one. That's different if you've capitalized that system for years on end, right? And it's there. We also have to remember that Nelson talked about loan repayments going into the policy were part of what he called his premium. Any dividends that were paid to him were premium, part of his income. And so some of those things, when he says all of your income should go through a policy, okay, loan repayments and dividends, interest, all that stuff he counted as income. Now, he did not tell me that. That is stuff that I have heard from other agents who have asked him about this question, because this is a hot topic. This is a really good way for a lot of agents to sell a lot of insurance. And if we remember in the beginning of Nelson's book, page 1, it said, this is not a tool for life insurance agents to sell insurance, right? This is a tool for the general public to understand how to think differently about their money. But let's just go back to what he's really talking about in the chapter. If we capitalize the system, all of our extra money should go into a policy so that we then are creating a banking system that we can borrow against to go buy things without having to go to the traditional bank down the road. We are making ourselves the banker. We are building our bank. This is huge because we have to beat Parkinson's law to get there. But we need to create our banking system. We need to put as much money into these policies as we can without stressing our daily living, right? We don't want to go into debt to do this, but we want to be able to create a system. I have a lot of people that come to me that they don't have any extra money. If I use extra money to start a whole life policy, I just created more debt for them because they're not going to be able to borrow against all of it right away. We have to be smart about all this. But Nelson also talks about in this chapter that the insurance company has to take our premiums and put them to work someplace. That is the same place the bank is taking your money and putting it to work, right? So he says you can take the managers of both and you can flip-flop them. It ultimately doesn't matter. You can see that once you get a substantial base of cash value in life insurance, you have all the elements of an insurance company except the pricing of a product, okay? So he is also talking about the fact that we can self-insure. So instead of buying comp and collision for auto insurance in this example, instead of buying comp and collision, he says you go to the insurance company and you find out what they were going to charge you and you put that into a policy. Now that works for some people, that does not work for other people, right? I don't have enough cash value to pay for comp and collision on my 15-year-old driver. My goodness, I mean, I don't have enough time to build that up to replace that vehicle. And so I am going to have insurance with the insurance company for my 15-year-old driver. Now, that might be a different situation for myself. That might be a different situation for somebody that is driving in the country and hitting deer 2 or 3 times every 10 years, right? Or every year. It depends on the situation. For Nelson, where he was living, great. He would go into the insurance company and say, I bought a new vehicle. What would comp and collision be? And he would put that into a policy. And he also talks about, this is another thing that we get a lot in this industry, is agents will say, okay, we can put money into a life insurance policy. Let's just use $10,000 as an example. And we have $10,000 of cash value, but you have a mortgage, and let's borrow the $10,000 from the insurance policy and pay down the mortgage. No, that is not an idea I'm okay with. And then Nelson says in his book, when cash value equals the mortgage payoff, then you can borrow the cash value to pay off the mortgage at the bank. What is the difference? If I borrow $10,000 of cash value and I pay down a mortgage, guess what? I still have my mortgage to make, my mortgage payment to the bank. I still have that to make. And now I have to pay the life insurance company back. I actually created more cash flow going out of my system because I need to pay the life insurance company back. Instead of paying it down, why not just wait until the cash value equals the payoff and then pay it off? And then the whole payment that you were making to the bank goes to the life insurance company. The only time that I will ever say, let's put money into the policy and borrow against it to pay down a debt is maybe we have a 20% interest credit card debt, or we have something really high interest, and then we can move some of that debt to the life insurance policy at a much lower interest rate. And we have control of it. So there are circumstances where we're going to do this. But when housing right now, home loans are 2.5%, do we really want to do that? Why would we want to pay it down? Let's just leave the money in the policy so that it's liquid. If we need it along the way, we can use it for something, pay it back, and still have it there to pay off the mortgage. Nelson talks a lot as well about making sure you're going to pay yourself back the same interest rate that the insurance company was charging you or more. And where does the or more go? Well, that's going to go into the policy as premium to start new policies. Nelson had 49 policies because every time he got done paying something off, he just kept paying that amount to another life insurance policy, right? If you are done making a house payment and the house is paid for, what are you doing with that extra money every month? It should go to a policy, just like it should go to a savings account if you don't want to do a policy. It ultimately doesn't matter, but you need to be honest about it. But the biggest thing is we need to understand the policy loan is not 0% interest. You are still paying interest on this. This is not free money. It has to be paid back. We have to be smart about it. We need to capitalize. We also need to understand that if we want every dollar of income going through the policy, how is that going to happen when hopefully every year we make more money? Or we don't know how much we're going to make? In your case, a lot of times we don't know how much we're going to make. So this year we made X amount of dollars and now we think next year that's how much we should be putting in a policy. It's going to take us time to get there. This is a lifetime goal. And hopefully we are always making more money. My goodness, I don't have anywhere near my income going through life insurance policies. Some people might think that's crazy that I should. But I also have to remember I need to pay those policy premiums every year. Every single year, those have to be paid. Well, that means I have to make the same amount of money every single year. Should that be a problem? No. But do we ever know? No. I am super, super conservative. If I'm not going to do it for myself, I sure the heck am not going to stick you in a situation or let you stick yourself in a situation where you can't pay premium. I did that early on. I didn't tell people no. I warned them, but I just didn't pull the reins back and say no. And guess what? I have clients that have trouble paying their premiums because they started too big and I knew it. And then they tell me, I should have listened to you. Yes, you should have. And so if you're a client or if you're waiting to be a client or wanting to talk to me and think I'm going to sell you something bigger, it's not going to happen. Typically, I'm going to come in lower than what you want. If I am not seeing the same numbers you are, and I am seeing that you just want to get this thing started as fast as you can on a prayer, I'm not going to allow it to happen because I don't want you losing money. We're going to start small. We are going to build a system of policies because that's exactly what Nelson says. It's a system of policies. You have to be patient. And you may never get to the point where everything that you ever need to finance is going to be financed through the policy. You may never get there in your lifetime, especially with the amount of money that farmers deal with. Some of my small farmers are already farming without the bank, right? But you big guys, you might not. You might never see that day. It might be a generation or two away, but that doesn't mean that you can't get started. It's not an all or nothing approach. And we can look and say, okay, yep, we can start where we're at today. But when commodity prices come back, remember, any extra money that you make should be going into a policy, not going to buy a new piece of equipment or going to buy something that is not needed just to avoid taxes. Start building that bank. Oh, I'll build that bank when I have everything I need. You're never going to have everything you need. Get over Parkinson's law. It's not going to happen. Okay, that was expanding the system to accommodate all income. I hope that answered some of the questions and cleared up a little bit too about, oh, Mary Jo's going to try to sell me something. Man, if there's nothing that ticks me off more is when people say, oh, you're just trying to sell something. No, actually, I'm trying to teach you something. But because you can't even get past the fact that it's life insurance and that I sell life insurance, you can't even see that. Come on, people. Open your eyes. If you have been listening to these podcasts, it has nothing to do with selling you something. It has everything to do with helping you with strategies and helping you think different so you can become the banker. It's about me helping you be the banker, helping you run those strategies. Am I going to lay it all out for the next 50 years of your life? No, I'm not. Because guess what? It's you becoming the banker. What I'm here for is to help you with those strategies. If you have a life insurance policy with me, you have access to me. You can call me. We run the strategies. We talk about what to do with that money, when to put it in, when to use it, how to use it, how to think about it. If you are not constantly thinking differently, you go back to what? The exact same thing you were doing. And we talked about that in the chapter, Use It or Lose It. You have got to be using it. You have got to continue to educate yourself on this matter. So it is not about selling you something. Get over it. Do you say I'm not going to buy a car because somebody sold that to me? Good heavens. Okay. I hope that helped. Let me know if you have questions, comments, concerns, whatever, doesn't matter. If you are not tuning in Thursday nights at 8:30 on our Facebook page, please do. I go over the weekly meetings, who I've talked to, what we've talked about, strategies we've talked about, types of people I'm meeting with. It's super informative. Those are also on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, which is just Mary Jo Irmen. That is under my name. And so you can find those there. But if you have questions, comments, concerns, things you want to hear me talk about, please let me know at Mary Jo at Without the Bank. Otherwise, I'm here. I'm only booked out 4 weeks at this point. Winter is upon us. We have already had winter here. We had snow. So we have winter. Some of you are just getting it, but harvest is already almost done. You're almost out of the field. So go and get scheduled so that when you are out of the field, you are on the calendar and you're not having to wait 4 weeks. Okay. There is some timing involved if you want to start a policy. It's going to take like 4 to 6 weeks. So if it's going to take you 4 weeks to get into me, we're like 8 weeks out just before we can get an approval. So make sure that you are getting on the calendar now. If you purchased the book, you are getting emails. In those emails are links to my calendar. If you are not getting emails from me, it is because it is in spam. Please check your spam folder. But many people email and say, hey, Mary Jo, I bought the book. I'm ready to go. What do I do? You're getting emails. Okay. If you're not, please check spam. If you want to schedule an appointment, that link is in those emails. Feel free to message us too, and we will get that to you. But I'm telling you now, get on the calendar and get yourself scheduled so that when harvest is over and you are in downtime, you have an opportunity to sit down and meet with us. And then do not forget that you scheduled that appointment. We will email you, we will call you, we will text you and remind you. But please do not forget when your appointment is, because people are waiting. And if you don't show up for the appointment, now somebody else had to wait longer and you forgot about us. I understand if things come up, just let us know. Absolutely. Just let us know 24 hours in advance, hopefully. And that is awesome so that we can get that set because we do have a waiting list. Okay. I think that's it, guys. I think that's it. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Please share if you find this valuable. Please leave a review. I would very much appreciate that. But until next time, have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Farming Without the Bank podcast. We hope today's episode has inspired you to take control of your finances in new ways. Don't forget to check out our website, farmingwithoutthebank.com, and engage with us on our Facebook page, Farming Without the Bank. Join us next week as we smash more financial myths and empower you to accomplish your financial goals.